Here's your host of the Truth Seekers Radio Show, Angeline Marie.
Well, hello from the East Coast to the West Coast and to listeners around the world. Welcome to the Truth Seekers Radio Show. I'm your host, Angeline Marie. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. Also, don't forget, you can always learn more about our program and find podcasts at truthseekersradioshow.com. And now you can watch these episodes for the Truth Seekers Radio Show on our Rumble channel. Just go to rumble.com and in the search feature, type Truth Seekers Radio Show. Well, today I have a very important interview. This is a phenomena that I don't think is extremely mainstream. Back in 2016, I interviewed a gentleman, Dr. John Hall, and back then we discussed electronic harassment. He and his girlfriend had been going through this, and it was a pretty bleak situation. Anyway, I've seen this phenomena. It seems that it's growing. And recently I came across a group called Targeted Justice. They help victims that are in electronic harassment situations. You may have heard the term targeted individual. Well, today we're going to discuss that issue with my guest. Today, my guest is Anna Toledo. She is advisory board member of Targeted Justice. She was born and raised in Puerto Rico. She is an attorney at law admitted to the Puerto Rico Supreme Court, United States District and Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. And after obtaining her BA from Columbia College in New York City, she obtained a Juris Doctor from University of Puerto Rico Law School and a Master of Environmental Law from Vermont Law School. Anna became a targeted individual over 20 years when she was pursuing her call to organize and represent environmental justice communities in Puerto Rico, where she represented thousands of clients in federal citizen suits and state complex and class action litigation. Her mission is to help fight the torture and targeting of these individuals. And if you will help me welcome Anna. How are you doing today, Anna?
Thank you, Angeline. Yes, I am very good. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here and just spread the word.
And I'm so grateful that you made time for us today. I really appreciate that. So for those that may have never heard the term targeted individual, Anna, could you first kind of define that for the audience?
Yes, targeted individual is a person that has been chosen by the deep state to form part of a human experiment that is very atrocious. Many people know about the historic MK Ultra experiments carried out by the CIA to perfect the art of mind control, and also COINTELPRO, which was carried out by the FBI against movements that were either socialist or communist, or this was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it's very close to my heart because in Puerto Rico, a lot of people that pursued independence were victims of COINTELPRO, and there was a huge class action lawsuit deemed the dossiers. And these people were, denied jobs. They were harassed. The same. It's the targeted individual program. It's a mixture of MK Ultra, which it's geared at mind control, and COINTELPRO, which is geared at destroying the person's position in society and opportunity to flourish.
Now, you have your own story, so this is very personal to you. Could you tell us your story and how you even came to find out that you were a targeted individual? How does that happen?
Well, see, Puerto Rico has traditionally been the land of experimentation. Since 1903, they've experimented on people there for many reasons. And it's very sad that because of our island, the nature of the island itself, it's very isolated. And not many people are bilingual. So people don't, and the news are filtered. So even though I was, when I found out, which I'm going to tell you right now, I was pretty well read. I had never heard the term targeted individual. So back in 1996, I started investigating. When I came back from Vermont Law School, I started investigating environmental problems and wanting to help environmental justice communities, as you mentioned. And one of in the class action, the biggest thing I started doing was investigating the atrocious nuisance coming from a wastewater treatment plant that was owned by the pharmaceutical huge Merck, Pfizer, Bristol, all the huge pharmaceuticals that were in the north area, like Arecibo, Barceloneta, those coastal areas. The stench coming out of that place, when I smelled it for the first time, it's like my skin wanted to come out of my body, and I pledged to help those people, because they would tell me stories like, the stench comes in the middle of the night and I cannot sleep. And, their lives were really, for 30 years, they had undergone this trauma. So I did a class action that for 10 years it lasted, but that's when I got targeted. And how I know it, because when in 2021, horrible things started happening, the gang stalking was ramped up. I called a person that lived in California, and she told me, "Oh my God, you're a targeted individual." And I was like, "What's that?" Like, for 20 something years, I'd been targeted and gang stalked and everything. And they even faked a cancer on me. And I went through a lumpectomy, and I went through the radiotherapy, and I didn't have cancer. And so I said, "What's that?" She said, "Just Google it." And that's when I came across targeted justice. And I wrote to Targeted Justice, and because I was an attorney, Mr. Richard Lighthouse, who is one of the directors, he had been desperately looking for an attorney to file a lawsuit to bring down this program. And Targeted Justice rescued me from Puerto Rico, airlifted me, and brought me to Houston to file this case.
You brought up a lot of points there. First of all, back when I interviewed John Hall, back then he kind of really didn't know who was behind it. I remember him bringing up they had discovered that some people that were part of the local area police department were involved. And then also, when I was looking into it, I found on these, back then it was like a board, a blog where people were talking in a forum that were targeted. And one thing I noticed that was in common is they all found out that these attacks were coming from like detectives, like of the investigative services companies. And I thought that was really strange until I stumbled onto Targeted Justice. I don't think I really understood the depth of how far up the chain this goes in terms of government involvement. And now, even what you were talking about, you were going against all these big corporations in your lawsuit, but I don't think it stops there. It's almost like maybe they're getting a clearance from higher up, from government and whoever runs the government, right, to do these attacks. And I don't know. I just see this it going deep. And you said yourself, deep state. I mean, it never dawned on me that they would allow this. But not only are they allowing it now, I believe they're really pushing it. And who knows if they're paying these people? I don't know. But it's interesting because you brought up Mr. Lighthouse. I was on your guy's site yesterday looking at some of the paperwork he had up there, and he had this FEMA document, and I haven't been able to go through the whole thing yet. But what was interesting is there were actually job boards that he had in there where there was actual jobs by these big companies where they're actually hiring people to do this work. And I'm thinking, what kind of sick people would take a job like that? What do you know about that?
Okay, there's various components to the targeting program. First of all, there's various reasons. Some people are put in the program because they're whistleblowers, and it's a retaliation. Like in my case, I was fighting the big corporations, the polluters, environmental criminals. And then there's other people that are put in the program for other reasons. For example, I've seen business competitors put people in, because they get nominated through the FBI to what is called a terrorist screening database. And this is very important, people to understand. People talk about the watch list, he's on the watch list. Well, the terrorist screening database was authorized in 2003 after 9/11 by an executive order called the Homeland Security Presidential Directive 3 and I mean 6, I'm sorry. And it was only supposed to contain the names of known and suspected terrorists. What happened was that they broadened the scope and they include these two secret categories, handling codes 3 and 4, where targeted individuals are. And these are people that, admitted by former deputy director of the Terrorist Screening Center, Timothy Grow, he admits these people do not represent a threat to national security, and that's why they don't get screened. When I travel, even though I am in handling code 3, I know I'm in handling code 3, I don't get stopped by TSA as if I was on the watch list. The people on the watch list, if you're in handling code 1, you cannot travel. If you're in handling code 2, you are subjected to hours of screening of your luggage and all of that. So this is where the human experimentation roster is. That is why I assume you have heard about Mr. Steve Friend, the FBI whistleblower, who talks about how the FBI was pressuring to categorize people as domestic terrorists. That is nothing other than placing them on this experiment. That is the reason. The opposition, you classify them as domestic terrorists, you spied on them warrantlessly through FISA court, and you make their life a living hell. And that's how it goes.
And you just hit the big boom when you were talking about how these people, you said experimenting, and I was thinking about our interview and the things I was going to ask, and that was one thing I wanted to bring up. It's not just that they're going after you because of this or this or this, but it almost seems multi-pronged. I think, especially now with the weapons and the technology they have, it's almost like they're doing a variety of testing. And yes, they're using for surveillance, and yes, for tracking. And that's where our society's going. We're going to be tracked and surveilled. But I think also they're experimenting on the body's reaction to these they're weapons of war, as far as I'm concerned. And who knows, maybe they're going to use, and they sort of are using them now to keep people in line, but it'll be something where you'll be in your house, and if I type something on the computer or do an interview like this and they don't like it, they'll shock me with some kind of frequency to get me to stop. And so maybe they're experimenting on body reaction to keep people in line. And now yesterday I heard a guy say that they've admitted now they're going to start doing marketing messages where when you're sleeping at night, if you have your phone in your room, subliminally they're going to plant these thoughts in your head of, you should buy this and buy that through these frequencies. So I just see this as a multi-pronged thing. But I got to tell the listeners, you've got to go to the Targeted Justice website, because you will not believe the horrific photos on that website of people who are actually being tortured. Anna, can you speak to that? I mean, some of
Yes.
those pictures are just awful. The people that are doing that should be executed.
Yes, the traitors at the United States Space Force should be prosecuted for treason and put in life or executed, because here's the thing. They are using military grade weaponry, just as they used the lasers in Lahaina to burn that city down, that town down. Well, it's a different kind of directed energy weapon. Okay. You touched on various things before I get, if you allow me, before I get, you talked about something really important, which is the invasion of our minds without a warrant, in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Subliminal messaging is going on 24/7 using this technology, and it's being done through cell towers. One of the ways everybody is being tracked, and in the Targeted Justice website, it explains how we are being tracked through Lockheed Martin satellites through the top of our head. One of the ways everybody can corroborate it is you cup your ears, and after 40, 60 seconds in a very quiet room, you're going to start hearing pops. that is nothing but microwave pops from everybody is being attacked by these weapons and the subliminal messaging. People need to, before you go to sleep, you need to program yourself and make yourself a firewall and say, I will only react to constructive suggestions. I will ignore a, I will ignore negative messages. You have to do it all in a positive way. Okay. Now, regarding the program itself, like I mentioned, it has two components. It has, that's a train back there. Sorry about that. You have the retaliation component, but there's also a component which is the experimentation. And there's 64 types of personalities. Not every targeted individual gets the same menu. For example, burns that you see in that website, I didn't get those burns, but I got implanted illegally with what is called a wireless body area network. And that means you go into a legitimate visit with your doctor to get a crown put in there, or a legitimate surgery. And when you come out of there, unbeknownst to you, you have been implanted with probes, medical artifacts, cables, and you can tell about it because you can get a very simple megaphone and pass it through your body, and it'll ring. It'll make noise because it's the electromagnetic waves. We are being experimented on. The FDA passed a rule, entered into place in January of 2024, that the internal review boards that do all sorts of medical experimentation, they do not have to get informed consent from patients if they believe that the experimentation will not cost them much, will not be of consequence. That means they can chip you without your consent and harvest your data. And this is why it's so crucial that people go to the Targeted Justice website, because this was going to be rolled out to the entire population, and it's all for population control. Just like in China, you have, the population control and the social credit score, or here they were doing it some other way.
You're absolutely right. We think, oh, well, it's just those people, it's just happening to those people. But you're right. They're going to roll this out for all of us to enjoy at some point. And that's why I think it all rolls back to an experimentation program. And yes, I think people like yourselves and whistleblowers and rabble rousers are on their list now, but I think everybody at some point will be on that list. How did you know that you had this wide area network technology or whatever that is installed?
When I first started researching targeted individuals, the first thing that came out was many of them are implanted. So I had all these. One of the things that they did to me as part of my targeting is they severely mutilated my breast in a breast surgery. Like, one is half the size of the other, and it was intentional. This by a 35-year experience, sport certified surgeon. But I didn't think any of it at that time because I didn't know it was targeted. So I looked for the MRIs, the CT scans, all the stuff I hadn't done because I had been implanted in my neck a long time ago, and I didn't know. And my neck, I was always going to the chiropractor because it always hurt. I thought it was my posture. I thought it was that I sat too long, in front of the computer. No, because I would go to the gym and I was in good shape. It was that I had these implants doing these things to me. And so I started digging them, and none of the doctors told the truth in their reports. But guess what? I went into the internet and I started looking at what normal x-rays and CT scans look like. And then I looked at mine and I said, oh my God, there's this square thing here. And then there's this rod here. And that's how I started figuring out. One of the worst implants I had was placed by a dentist in March of 2017. Since then, I have fallen strenuously like 15 times. Thank God I haven't broken anything. But if you fall and you're like, how did I fall? Maybe your dentist put something in there. There's also investigations carried out by Dr. Len Bear, who is the first civilian that was, he's targeted. He's the first civilian that was diagnosed with Havana syndrome, which is non-kinetic. The real good correct name is non-kinetic brain injury. He has a tab in Targeted Justice. You can look it up. And Dr. Bear, he explains to me, these things that they can put in your teeth can make you, because it's so close to the vagus nerve, can make, or your ear, your cochlear, can make you lose your balance, And so I urge everybody, now that everybody's talking about Havana syndrome, it's not just the Havana people. Those people were attacked with directed energy weapons by our own government. And the reason we know this is because the CIA admitted way before that there is no indication a foreign power was involved. They admitted that it was them, And so a lot of FBI agents have Havana syndrome now, targeted FBI agents, a lot of targeted government employees. We have a huge veteran population that is targeted. And it's very sad to know that veterans that served to this country are being targeted by the very same country they served.
How many people in this country are being harassed electronically in these programs?
Our estimates, based on the documentation we obtained in the discovery in the El Haiti versus Cable case, which was one case that was challenging the watch list, we estimate it's 400,000 people now. Out of those 400,000, 75% do not know they're targeted because their targeting is very, very slight. One of the trends we have seen, because we have done surveys in our population, one of the trends we have seen is that it's mostly 62% are middle-aged women. We also have the V2K, which is microwave auditory effect. A lot of people suffer from it. They think they're going crazy. They think they have developed schizophrenia. No, it's a technology, a patented technology used in warfare. And so people start hearing voices, and schizophrenia starts in the decade of age 22, 24, and it's mostly women. But in our survey, it's mostly targeted individual males, 62% also, that have voice-to-call. And the purpose of the program per se is, in these, like I was saying, in these 64 personalities, is to see what makes you go on your knees, what makes you commit suicide, what makes you, what breaks your spine, basically. And some of us are wild Mustangs that are very hard to domesticate, but many targeted individuals have committed suicide.
You talked about on the website, the effects are obvious in those pictures, but I've heard of people that have ear ringing. I heard a woman talk about a buzzing in her body. Have you ever heard of that one? I
Yes.
guess at night when she's sleeping.
83% of targeted individuals have artificial tinnitus. However, the average in the nation is 14%. And the tinnitus is because of the satellite tracking. The body vibrating is part of the microwaving. Sometimes the 75% people that don't even know they're TI, one of the indicia that they're targeted is that when they wake up in the morning, particularly women with the fibromyalgia is a disease that they don't know what causes it. It came out of thin air. 20 years ago, nobody had it. And all of a sudden, it has skyrocketed. In my opinion, even though I'm not a doctor, I think fibromyalgia is nothing other than being microwaved. Mostly women, middle-aged women suffer from it. So you get microwave because when you are lying down or when you're still, it's easier for them. I think it takes something like 3 minutes to do like a triangulation, like a 3D pattern of where to fire the weapon at you. So when you're asleep, it's easier. And some people, there's this, he has this show his podcast, very famous man, and I'm sure he's targeted, but he doesn't know it. He says that when he wakes up every morning, for 45 minutes, his back, he cannot tolerate it. And I'm like, you're being so microwaved and you don't even know it. That's one of the symptoms. So yeah, the persons that get burned, that are a lot of people get burned. Children, this is very important. Children of targeted individuals also get targeted, and very cruelly. They get tortured with a microwave auditory effect. This is microwave beams at a developing brain going on with voices. So, aside from that child hearing atrocious things that these criminals say to them, imagine a child in school trying to pay attention to the teacher with these voices going on 24/7. You also have the damage to a developing brain because that brain is being microwaved 24/7. The same with our pets. Our pets get attacked just to torture us. I had to give up in adoption my pets because I would see how they would be convulsing.
Mm. You brought up the 5G towers. I'm sure you maybe after when lockdown in the United States, I noticed in my area, and I heard other people across the country say that when they got out of lockdown, they noticed all these 5G towers everywhere. So obviously, this is probably part of the program. They're trying to say it's for faster internet, but I think it all goes back to the surveillance tracking plan they have for us. But I guess my question is it easier? Does it make a difference how close people live to a 5G tower when they're getting attacked, or can they pretty much get you wherever you are and it doesn't matter if the tower is right by you, or how does that?
That's a great question. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, there's three types of antennas we want to talk about. If you live close to one of those round spheric ones, you want to move away at least 5 miles from that, because that is automatic cancer. And I've seen them on top of malls that people work there all day. Those are really atrocious. Now, the 3G and 4G, which is the little panel and the longer panel, those have longer range, and a weaponized tower will be one that in one level has 4 panels facing the same direction. That is a directed energy weapon. Now, the 5G per se is already a weapon. It's already weaponized, because the 3G and 4G, they needed a microchip that creates a microwave beam. The 5G is already a weapon. However, it has a shorter range. That's why they have to put more of those. So, I'm considering right now moving to a place where there are not many towers, and I don't care for the service, because the situation is that they are not just targeted individuals, they are attacking absolutely everybody with a subliminal messaging. And, in Russia, they prohibited 5G, and it's for a reason, because they are a weapon. They can be used as a weapon.
We talked about the numbers in this country, but this is also an international thing. Do you have any numbers on that for international?
We estimate there's around 6 million targeted individuals around the world. It is very sad, because in places like in Spain, the gang stalking and the weapons, the burns are so atrocious, and the boys just go, and people don't dare talk about it, because over there, if you talk about this publicly, they will put you in a mental hospital. That's one of the things, that's one of the reasons I don't even step into Florida, because in Florida, there is the Baker Act, and anybody, even a policeman, can put you in a mental hospital, for a temporary hold. And that's what happens to people in Europe. You cannot talk about this technology. This is all patented, okay? This is military grade weaponry used on innocent Americans and innocent civilians around the world. And it's funded by the United States. It's a special access project, what they call them, the Black Projects of the United States. even the people that have the security clearance to know about this program are higher than the president. And,
Yeah.
um, the church committee supposedly abolished MK Ultra. However, nobody went to jail for that. And that's why they
Right.
just rewrapped it and did a new thing. Maybe they don't put people to sleep uh, for 30 days like they would with MK Ultra. But I'll tell you one thing they do. They will sleep deprive you for a week, for an entire week. We have targeted individuals ready to kill themselves because for an entire week, they will beam a frequency at them that they will not be able to sleep. Now, one of the recurring thoughts the targeted individuals get is they're going to kill me because of course you have people that follow you in cars when you go to the store, they bump into you, and they're like they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me. No, the experiment is not murdered. They might slow kill you, but they are not allowed to touch you, they're not allowed to murder you. They want you to take your own life. And that's when the experiment will succeed. So, if there is one, if there are targeted individuals out there listening, um, it is important you understand that they want you to think they're going to kill you, but that's not the purpose of the program. They will make you sick. They will make you anxious. They will sleep deprive you. They will make you depressed. They will make all your friends stay away from you. They will defame you. They will call you a terrorist publicly or a pedophile. And they will take your family away from you. But they're not going to kill you. So happiness is a choice. And we are doing a battle in the Fifth Circuit right now against this program, uncovering, we sued the FBI, Mr. Ray, Mr. Mayorkas, the DHS, because these are the main players in the program.
So these international targets are also, it all stems from the US, the programs that we developed, right? That's what you're saying.
That's correct. NATO plays an important role. And you can look up on the internet how the director of the Terrorist Screening Center, Mr. Charles Cable, would go to train in different countries like Georgia. For example, curiously enough, over 60% of targeted individuals have been targeted after 2017. Mr. Cable started as director of the Terrorist Screening Center in March of 2017. When we filed our lawsuit on January 11th, 2 weeks later, he retired from the FBI, from the Terrorist Screening Center. And most of the people that have responded to our surveys and our forms say that they were targeted from 2017 on.
Could you talk a little bit about, you've used the term gang stalking a couple times, just for people who maybe are first hearing about this, can you tell them what this gang stalking means?
Yeah, well, it's organized stalking. It's directed from the fusion centers. I believe there's 99 fusion centers around the United States, and they're supposed to work as counterintelligence, against terrorism. Because parents that go to um, PTA meetings, to school board meetings, are called domestic terrorists if they are against the agenda of teaching pornography to the children. So these fusion centers deploy people to basically follow you around, and it's very interesting because I didn't know part of their thing was I would be dressed really nicely, and they make a point to come to you and tell you, oh, that's a nice, and they almost touch you, that's a nice jacket. And it is to sort of make you paranoid. Since I didn't know, I was like, oh, thank you. But that's one of their tactics. Another of their tactics is to wear the same color shirts, or it's just psychological operations. In my situation, they did a dating psyops. They will put honeypots, so you date people that then will never call you again, and you're like, oh, I had a great time with that person, and it's all because they were hired by these criminals. And so they spend the United American taxpayer money in trying to do psychological operations on people and different, whatever ticks you. They also break into your house, and they for example, your tweezers for eyelash for your eyebrows. Well, you left them there, and you can't find them. Then you go buy another pair, and when you come back, oh, you found them. Well, it's that they had taken them. So one of the things that is really important for people, even if you're not a targeted individual, is to insure your house, because these criminals, they come in and out as they please. They are experts at coming in and out of your house. They will poison your food. They poison my water. In Puerto Rico, I would drink, you can't drink tap water there. So I would drink from gallon water. They would put a substance that made my teeth rot so that they could implant me with more artifacts. So I didn't know this was going on, but my best friend would tell me, oh, don't just drink from the tap. And it's because he knew I was being poisoned. So it's a very sophisticated, it's been 20 years in the making. This started in 2004, when the first terrorist screening database was rolled out. And it's a very sophisticated private enterprises involved. A lot of doctors are involved in the illegal implants of non-consenting, non-suspecting patients. I have people that tell me, for example, she went for a thyroid biopsy, and she put on the megaphone there, beep, and it sounds. And it's because with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, they gather evidence from you about your blood composition, about, you become an experiment, even if you're not a targeted individual. And that is being rolled out to the population of the United States. People in our website, we have a letter that you can copy. I do not consent to be part of any medical experiment unless you inform me and I give you informed consent. I was going to mention before, Dr. Lambert, he has a Substack. He did microscopy of dental anesthetic. Applying mixed with blood, applying a frequency to it within, I think, a week. It contains nanotechnology that forms into self-assembling chips. You can look him up. I'm not making this up. He has a video of the microscopy, and you can clearly see the assembled microchips. Dental anesthetics, carbocaine, I think it's what it is.
So gang stalking then is when they get these people to sort of enter your life, right, and do things, whether it's directly get in touch with you, or even I've heard of them putting up to people like your neighbors, and they'll say, oh, that person, we're watching this person, they're a terrorist. But to me, when I think of gang stalking, it's just getting a bunch of people on board that watch you, attack you, maybe not physically, but they harass you. So would that be a definition of a gang stalking?
Absolutely. But
having outside people come in.
Even your family members. I had the sons and daughters of my cousins at family parties would gang stalk me. And I had no idea. Now, Mr. Lighthouse is of the belief that a lot of it is mind control. People are mind controlled to behave in a certain way to harass you. That may be true in a lot of the cases. But then there's the DHS component of the people. And here, this is my own very personal theory. I think that part of the reason they are allowing all these illegal immigrants is because it's an unlimited amount of gang stalkers that have no understanding of civics, that have no compassion, and that will do anything for money. And at the very moment they don't do what the fusion center people tell them to do, they will be deported. So it's the perfect gang stalking soldier. And I think that part of the intention of the Department of Homeland Security in allowing so many illegal immigrants into the nation is because they have a demand for armies of gang stalkers that will follow you everywhere. They will slash your tires.
Mm-hmm.
They will, come into your car, put roaches. They will put, termites in your house. They just do atrocious things, and they will kill your pets. They will kill your pets. They will microwave. No, the gang stalkers don't have microwave weapons, but they do, this kind of things to make you suffer. The point is to make you anxious, to make you suffer, to make you unstable, and they get paid. It is my understanding many of them get paid with gift cards. I don't know exactly how that goes, and that's obviously one of the things we want to one day uncover through discovery
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
legal process we're doing.
I was going to ask you, that makes a lot of sense. And I mentioned earlier how Mr. Lighthouse document had actual job postings. He had screenshots of job postings for these jobs. They would call them something like surveillance analyst or some weird, different terms that they would use. They wouldn't say gang stalking or anything like that. But I was going to ask you, what do you think when these people apply for these jobs? Do they really realize? And it says that you'll go through training. And I'm just wondering, do you think when they hire these people, because I think even if I took that bait, applied, and was hired, I think once I started training and found out what I would have to do, my conscience would never let me carry out anything like that. I don't care what I was getting paid. So I'm wondering what kind of profile these people have to have. Do they have to have some kind of a gene or a personality that doesn't have much of a conscience? What have you learned about that, if anything?
Well, one of the things is, as you may know, civics is no longer being taught in schools. So people don't know your basic rights, privacy, presumption of innocence. Uh, so the people that go into working for these things, for these program, they don't know the basic, civics upon which this nation was built. That's one thing. The people that are the immigrants that come from these nations where they don't have the American Constitution, well, you cannot expect them to respect rights they've never even known about. And yeah, a lot of them are told. For example, I go into bakery and three ladies go in there and they start, like one of the things they do is street theater. So you're thinking about something because they can actually read your thoughts, and then the ladies start talking about exactly what you're thinking. That's one way to gang stalk you. Those three ladies are either mind control or they're told she's a terrorist. She's a threat to national security. It is your job to go harass this person. This person is a bad person, and some people actually believe it. And that's one of the things that some are just doing it for the money. For example, in Puerto Rico, where I was, colleagues of mine lend themselves to this thing because it's so big, and they knew I wasn't a terrorist. In fact, I went to the FBI and I said, I want you to arrest me right now. I want you to accuse me right now. And if you don't do that, you take me out of that list because I'm not a terrorist and you know it. And of course, the man was like, he didn't know where to look because
Mm-hmm.
they knew they did this to me as a retaliation. So it's many components. Yeah, there's evil people. Then there's people that think they're being patriots, that they are being patriots because they are harassing a person that, despite her presumption of innocence, they've been told that I am a terrorist or a criminal or I don't know what.
Hmm. Do you think, because I was thinking about all of the, how I mentioned earlier how I thought it was multi-pronged, that it was experimenting on people. Do you think it even goes as far as maybe being related to the transhumanism movement, where maybe they're testing just how much technology they can meld with human, and they're testing that out as well? Could that even be part of this?
I totally think so. I think many, I know many targeted individuals like myself have been implanted head to toe, not just to torture us, but to experiment on transhumanism and see how much mind control they can carry out through this, how these work. You know, I have behind in January of 2020, I had these two put behind my ears, and you know, um, I had many in my organs that show in the X-rays, and it's a time bomb because I know that if they wanted to kill me right now, they would have done it because they have certainly the mechanisms to do it without leaving a trace. But it's people need to realize the increment in surgeries where people complain, oh, the doctor left something inside of me. No, it was not a scissor. It was a medical artifact intentionally placed inside of you. And that is what people need to realize. Go look at you feel one dead giveaway is when you feel strange tickles, strange itches in your body. That's an electric current that may be, that's how I feel them. I know I feel them in different parts. It's an electric current because that's how it feels. So when you feel these like strange, you know, um, strange itches that are not recurrent,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not a bite, that might be an implant. I just ask people to be vigilant, to not be gullible, to not be naive. We're living in terrible times, and there are very ugly people out there, very evil people doing evil things, even to children.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to red pill America and have people, even if you don't feel you're targeted, read about this, because all this whole thing about FISA, the people that the FBI spies on without a warrant, they are targeted individuals. And they hack all your phones, all your computers. I do not have a single email that is not surveyed by the FBI. They control my emails. They decide who I can speak to or not. They're constantly listening to my phone conversations. It's atrocious. And I do not consent to the illegal surveillance or recording of any of my calls. And they don't have a warrant on me. So that is why this FISA fight was so important, because it really is about targeted individuals. You have James O'Keefe. He's now placed on handling code 2. He's on the watch list. You have another commentator that I watch occasionally, Salty Cracker. Last week he said on his show, I'm on the watch list. Journalists are being targeted. That other man that I mentioned to you, he has a very famous podcast. I know he's targeted. So it's just anybody who dares, shake a little bit the leaves of the tree, they might become targeted. And that's not what the First Amendment says, because you're being punished for exerting your freedom of speech, your freedom of thought, your freedom of association. It has got to stop.
And I don't know anything about legal, but I have to believe, first of all, I think the reason that they're giving themselves they're allowing themselves to do this, and they're saying that to them it's legal, is because what I've learned the last couple of years is they look at us as assets of their corporation. So we're just human resources, literally. And when you have an asset or a human resource, they believe that as the head of the corporation, they can test and do whatever. However, I feel like there is a loophole that if we knew what that loophole was, we really do have control to get them to cease and desist like right away. I'm just not sure. And I think they would have to abide by it, but I'm not sure exactly what that is and how you would go about that. But
Well,
you're
that's
the legal
exactly,
mind. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly the lawsuit. We presented a lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas. And in that lawsuit, we allege, first of all, that there is a human experimentation program going on, and it's the targeted individual program. And there is a sworn statement, a statement under penalty of perjury by former director, special agent, supervisor Ted Gunderson, who was a whistleblower, and he details in there how the program is. So the people are placed on handling codes 3 and 4 without reasonable suspicion, admitted by the FBI. And what we're saying to the court is, it is unconstitutional, it is illegal to put people on a non-terrorist on a terrorist list. That's number one. Number two, to carry out surveillance on them without probable cause, and to do all the things they do, including obviously the microwaving. Because, for example, Dr. Bear has Havana syndrome. Well, the National Academies of Sciences and Mathematics, and they concluded that the most probable cause of Havana syndrome, non-kinetic brain injury, is microwave pulses. You do not get that unless you were attacked with microwave pulses. That's it, you know. So it's like, if you have it, you're definitely being microwave weapons are being fired at you. So we filed that, and the district court dismissed it as fantastical and implausible, because the key to the program is plausible deniability. Oh, these people are crazy. Except that when you have a former deputy director of the terrorist screening center admitting that they put non-terrorists on a terrorist database, you have to ask yourself why. So here's how we found out. Mr. Lighthouse was lying on the floor with a blood clot on in his lungs, horrible, atrocious pain. His 87-year-old mother, who is the only person that lived with him in the house, called the ambulance. The Brazoria County sheriffs come in and say, the ambulance is out there, but we cannot let them in because we were told a suspected terrorist lived here and we have to secure the area. That is how Mr. Lighthouse connected that his microwave attacks were tied to the terrorist screening database. And from there on, he has written a lot of ebooks. He has, dedicated himself to putting all this information in targeted justice, so people realize that these things are happening to you. You're not going crazy. It's a technology, and the more you learn about it, and the more you learn how to shield yourself from it and protect yourself from it, you can withstand and stay strong while we shut down this program in the courtroom, which is what we're trying to do now in the Fifth Circuit.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if you wouldn't, well, first of all, give your information where people can read about your story or your work or what you're doing. Where can they find you online?
Yeah, well, at my anatoledo.com, I have there one article it's my Medium. It's basically my Medium page, and I have there one article that says telltale signs that might indicate you're a targeted individual. And if 5 of these happen to you in a month, it is likely you're targeted. Mm-hmm. And then I urge everybody to just go to targetedjustice.com. I have a Spanish tab there because from Mexico to Patagonia, this program has been exported to these nations, and people think it's witchcraft. People don't understand what is going on with their bodies and their lives, So I started a little tab there. We also have a Rumble channel, Real Targeted Justice, and we have interviews there to explain. We have a symposium of doctors that happened yesterday. We have really good interviews that explain how this program works and how we discovered everything that we've discovered. So, and then there's the Substack newsletter, Targeted Justice, and Substack. Mm-hmm. In there, we give notification of all the developments, not only in the case, but of findings that we carry out. So I just urge you to go to the Targeted Justice and Real Targeted Justice at Rumble, because for non-believers, when you listen with an open mind, mm-hmm. you can save someone's life or your own life.
And, I can't think of a better way to end. I was watching different interviews of you to prepare, And I love, love, love what you said in one interview when you were wrapping up. And I think this would be appropriate for today. You were talking to the interviewer, and you said, these perpetrators of these crimes never counted on God. So give us some hope, Anna. And why don't you expound on that, what you said?
Well, certainly they had the perfect program, the secret list of the FBI. They had their minions at the DHS, but they never put into the equation the power of God. I am here because of the glory and grace of God, because what they put into my body, they were supposed to have been, controlled my thoughts and controlled my behavior and eradicated me, obliterated me. And it is the grace of God, by the grace of God, that I am a walking miracle, and I'm here not just talking to you, but doing the appeal in the Fifth Circuit and fighting. We're never going to give up. I am proof. I am living proof that there is no technology that can withstand the power of God. And I urge targeted individuals that do listen. Many of them, they get so sad because they obsess listening and reading about the technology. Do not forsake your happiness. Do not forsake your power of choice, and just hold on to God, because He has been so powerful in the lives of so many, and He will bring this program down. Because this is an evil program. It is God. It is with God we're bringing it down.
Amen to that. Okay, well, thank you so much, listeners. Today, my guest has been Anna Toledo. She is of Targeted Justice. Hopefully, I'll be able to get her back on one day. And we thank you so much, Anna, for your time today. And listeners, until next week, God bless.